Well, it's another day and another problem to solve. This is kind of a strange one. Got a rental house I'm doing some updates on. People that had lived here for like 8 years. I came out here to turn on the water and I noticed this going on. So how's that possible? The whole spigot's twisting in the wall. That's supposed to be sorted in place. So I had to do some inspection. I'll show you what I found. So I came inside, I seen there had been some drywall work done here. So I knew evidently at some point in time the pipe had frozen, busted, and the renter fixed it instead of calling me, which I guess is kind of nice. They tried to fix it themselves. Used my little saw here to cut out the drywall. And here's what I found inside the wall is a SharkBite. And I don't like shark bites inside of a wall. That's just asking for trouble because you're relying on these O-rings to keep the water out, keep it from leaking. And I just don't trust that inside of a wall. I trust solder. Something else to think about, because all that, is that rubber O-ring. We're dependent on that rubber O-ring to keep that seal. And of course, at the moment, you have to assume, because in our area, we can get water pressure up to like 150 psi. Now, as long as our water regulator is working, doing its job, it keeps the pressure around 55 psi. So you may have a SharkBite hooked up and under 55 psi it's working fine. But then when the regulator goes out and your water pressure spikes, then maybe that SharkBite may or may not hold if it's not installed properly, or the O-ring finally gives out. And then the thing pops off, especially inside the wall, and you have a half-inch pipe flowing out water wide open. That would be an incredible nightmare. So I don't want to deal with that nightmare in the future. So I'm going to remove this and do it the correct way so I don't have any future trouble. So let's try to get this apart. Well, as you can see around the corner here, I got the SharkBite removed. Here's the old spigot, pull it out. So I don't like that SharkBite style, especially being inside the wall. Don't care for SharkBites anywhere, to tell you the truth, but I know it's a kind of a common thing now for do-it-yourselfers. But just old-fashioned, I like solder. So I went to Lowe's, I got me a brand new spigot, and I went ahead and took it apart because I don't want the heat to damage this seal when I go to braise it. You don't want it, because there's always a possibility of getting it too hot and damaging your O-ring here. So I pulled the guts out of it. It's easy enough, just take the nut off the end of it. So, but another problem I got, if you can see in there too, there's a cavity here. It goes back in about 4 or 5 inches, but there's no insulation whatsoever. All it had was this little styrofoam bit. And you can see this stuff is broke out, so I gotta fix that. So my plan is I'm gonna stuff this cavity full of insulation. I got me some insulation here, left over from another project. So I'm gonna fill that full of insulation to help keep the cold air out away from this pipe. And in order to fix where this is broken out, I took me a lid off a little plastic tote. I took that, cut it up, and made me a pretty new piece of plastic that will fit in here like that. Ta-da! Then I got my little trim ring I put on here like this. It'll look nice when I'm all done with it. So let's get some insulation shoved in there, and we'll kind of put this back together and start doing some soldering and see if we can't get this project finished and fixed like it's supposed to be. So you see I got the insulation all packed in there good and tight. And so we'll put this together. Get it lined up just right, because once you solder it, it's going to be in position. So I want to make sure I get that in the right position. Let's get me some solder and my little torch out and get this done. So you see what I've done real quick. I've sanded the pipe really well. Got plenty of flux on it. Got my little torch. Got me some solder. Won't take but just a few seconds. I'll heat this up really good and let the solder flow in. And then we'll turn on the water, make sure we don't have any leaks. And we'll put all this back together. So here we go. All right, you see the solder is done. I put me a piece of metal, aluminum flashing in there so I didn't burn nothing, cause no fires. We don't want that. So I got that part done, and I realize a lot of do-it-yourselfers, they like the SharkBites and stuff, but really soldering is not that hard to learn. You can teach yourself pretty easy, and there's a truckload of videos online show you exactly how to do soldering. It's always a good skill to learn. Anytime you teach yourself something new, it's a good thing. And so like I said, I had this out, so because I did the soldering, I didn't want to overheat that O-ring. So let's put that in there, and let me see some more pieces, parts I got laying here. Little washers, my packing. Put that on there. Washers. And that's this packing too is another thing to notice. Like a lot of times you may have water leaking around a stem, and you easily correct that by just snugging up this nut, and that'll keep it from dripping. I see a lot of spigots doing that. There we go. Get it snugged up. Turn the water back on. Check for leaks. Don't take much. All right, so let's go get the water on and test this. Okay, time for our test. Got me a little gauge on here. This is something every handyman should have in their toolbox. You can go to Amazon. It's called Rainbird gauge. Be sure you get one that, you know, goes up to 200 psi. Very handy gauge to have. You know, check your water pressure. Time to time, if you have a water heater that's dripping constantly, toilet won't stop running, just screw this onto your water spigot. Check your pressures. You should have 50, 55 psi. See, we're looking there. This one is a little bit low, maybe at 45 psi, something in that range. But as you can see, all is good. We have no leaks. And everything's good and tight. It's not spinning in the wall like it was. So that makes me feel much better. Now I just got to come up with something with this hole and insulate it a little better, make me an access door or something. So let's tackle that project. All right, well, the plan's starting to come together because I've added more insulation. My first thought, well, I'll just put me a little piece of paneling on here, maybe an access door in case there's ever a problem in the future. You never know. Sometimes renters forget to unhook their water hose and it freezes and busts the pipe. Because if you don't know, of course, you need to undo your hose so the water can drain out of this pipe. Because the valve, let's put this out here, that little rubber seal actually shuts the water off right back in here. That's why, I don't know if you can tell or not, but it has a little bit of a tilt to it. It leans out, so that way the water, once you unhook your water hose, all the water will drain out of it. And there'll be no water in this pipe, so no chance of it freezing and busted. But if you leave your water hose hooked up, the water can't drain, it freezes and busts, and you have a problem. So get all that insulation in there. And my first thought was to use this piece of paneling, but I thought, well, one thing, it keeps the cold, you know, there's no insulating value in that. And the drywall probably had some insulating value. So then I thought, okay, let me do this. My big 3/4 piece of styrofoam here. I'll put that in front of it and then put it on. So that way I'll get more insulation value and I still have my little access door and it don't look so ugly. So let's put a couple of screws in this and see what the final product looks like. Okay, so there's my final result. Everything's all buttoned up. Water works. We got no leaks. I think we're insulated well. Shouldn't have any problems in the future. But I was looking at this. I took this apart. So let me talk about this for a second. Do you really want to trust your house to an O-ring? I was doing some research on SharkBites and they're called other names, these plastic easy connectors. But I read an article about a professional plumber where he talked about where he installed one of these on the upstairs bathroom in a customer's house, and it failed, and it was either $50,000 or $80,000 in damage. Luckily, this plumber had insurance, and it was covered. But you know do you really want to take a chance on your house on that little O-ring right there, holding back 55 or 150 psi, and if it fails, the amount of damage it could possibly cause? I don't want no part of that. But that's just something to think about. Also, I wonder, as a homeowner, if a homeowner installs one of these and it fails and you have an insurance claim, will the insurance company pay out? Could the insurance company come back and say, well, a licensed plumber did not install this, so this bill is going to be on you? I don't know the answer to that question, but it would be something to inquire and to investigate. Anyway, that's just my 2 cents. Hope you learned something. Have a great day.